Welcome back to Capitol Review. I'm Mark Hall. Democrats still reeling from Election Day, but the party is trying to regroup and move forward. Dr. Todd Belt joins us. He is the director of the Political Management Program at the Graduate School of Political Management at George Washington University. Dr. Belt, welcome back to Capitol Review.
Great to be back with you, Mark.
Well, Dr. Belt, you know, Democrats lost the White House, they lost control of the Senate, and they did not win the majority in the House. Your reaction to Election Day for Democrats?
Right. Well, this was a change election, and Kamala Harris could not really disentangle herself from Joe Biden. But we did see a couple Senate races where some of the Democratic Senate candidates did. They ran away from Joe Biden, and they were able to retain their seats, even in states that Donald Trump took. And of course, the House was always going to be close, but it didn't break the way that Democrats thought it would in some of those key races in New York and in California. It looks like it's going to be a very close margin for Speaker Johnson going forward.
What's next for Democrats before 2026?
Well, once they get done with all the finger pointing, which of course is going on right now, which happens after an election, they're going to need to put together a post-mortem, and they're going to have to really talk to some people, particular groups that they've done really poorly with, particularly Latino voters as well as working class voters who they really need to speak to their concerns, because it's very clear that they lost a lot of those voters in the past couple elections, and particularly in this one.
Do Democrats need to work on messaging?
Well, first they need to listen. They need to listen to these voters and what their concerns are. Then they need to put together some plans that will actually help these voters, and then they need to put the messaging together on it. It has to be in that order so that you really figure out what the plan is and then talk about it. There's an old saying in politics that you can't out-message the economy, right? If you're going to try to tell people what you want to do to make their lives better, you have to figure out what that is before and convince them of it before you even start getting into the messaging.
Can both parties work together on any issues besides infrastructure?
Right. Well, we got that great big bipartisan infrastructure bill during the Biden administration, but the other big bipartisan one we got was the CHIPS and Science Act. And one of the things that we found in our GW Politics poll is that Democrats and Republicans alike, when we asked them if they think China is more of a threat or more of an opportunity, 2/3 of both Democrats and Republicans think China is a threat. This is an opportunity here for Democrats and Republicans to work together when it comes to China.
Can President Trump, can he set the tone that could determine how both sides work together moving forward?
Well, that would really be counterfactual to everything we've seen from Donald Trump. We know that he has a sort of revenge tour planned. We've seen from some of the loyalists that he has nominated to certain positions, including Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. It doesn't look like we are in for any sort of holding hands moment with Democrats and the Republicans.
Can both sides find common ground on immigration?
Immigration, they did find common ground, and then, of course, Donald Trump scuttled that bipartisan deal that they had. The question is, will Democrats be willing to come back to the table when it's not a Democrat as president, and it would be something that would benefit Donald Trump and not a Democratic president?
Dr. Todd Belt, thank you so very much for joining us.
Great to be with you.